5 or something.
I don't know if we would have stopped. I try to stop at the chapters. I mean, or at least a section. Yeah. Hold on. Let me bring this thing up. Um, mm, on 7 would be. Well, it's just just because we haven't went over it. I mean, if it's only 5, I mean, I mean, I don't know. All right. Let me bring it up. How's everything going by you?
Everything's good.
Uh,
Uh, you know,
no, say it again. You broke up.
no, everything's good. Just, studying, applying,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
stay on the deck.
So, so the thing is, it's not so. I mean, the thing is, I don't. Just to respond earlier, because you asked me a message about people speaking with Sean around. I don't really hear things directly, right? Because people don't do anything to me. But I don't know. Robert Pincus said people, were coming at him saying stuff about me. I don't know exactly about what, and it wasn't important to him to bring it up. But the point is just saying that, ever since I kind of like started to deal with, African Americans, you know, and the whole concept of Tinoch Shinishba, all these different things, there was a lot of pushback, not from the Jewish community, from mostly other Jews that were black or African American or whatever you want to call them. So that's really where a lot of the opposition from. Regular, everyday Jews could care less. You know what I mean? Like they're just like, hey, it's it's positive. It's a mitzvah to help people connect. So no one really cares. So I've had like pushback, mostly by other Black Jews. But what's so interesting about it, some of these people who are doing pushback are now trying to get involved. Like they're trying to write up. But there's one guy who's like speaking all these things against me. He's like he tried to get me to endorse his book, whatever. The point is just saying, so is that. So now that was like a whole thing, right? And then Rabbi Aruvin came in and was just kind of like, um, he was kind of like, um, he said, you should talk to, Hebrew Israelites and these types of things. And, like he was in support of like what I was doing. And I'm not saying he singled me out or anything, but I know the people who came to him, who had the question, we're hoping to hear not this, I don't know, I don't want to say that. But anyways, I just felt like there was an opposition and I was teaching very openly, especially with Zion Lex. It's funny, out of all the things that I did, the only people got upset that I was working with or doing like podcasts with was Zion Lex. Captain Tazariak and this guy and Yashiala and all these different people. I went on their podcast. No one said anything, only with Zion Lex, which I thought was interesting because he has the only community that's like kind of like out there that like will be more be receptive to my message. Right. And so I thought that was just like really interesting. And so now this whole thing with the Temple Mount, it's just like on steroids, And the thing is, it's an interesting position because, Israel as a country, you know, is at a different place than it was, I would say, before October 7th, right? And so now certain things of just like connection and what really matters and a lot of that has come out of that our relationship with the Temple Mount has changed a lot. And because of the leadership of people like Ben Gavir and Knesset people like Smotrich and these many different characters and many different righteous people, who work in government, really really made this whole thing like evolve, right? And so now I just, I met people, I knew people that were, going to Temple Mount, that were, religious in the community that I was in during the time of yeshiva. And over time, it took like years for me to actually go up Temple Mount. Like from the first time I heard about it to now, I was like, bro, I want to go up there. But at first, I thought like if I go up there, I'd just be like zapped into dust, right? This week's partially talk about Lot's wife going to dust. I thought for sure if I go to Temple Mount, but I was like, man, bro, it's too much light, this, blah, blah, blah. And it is a lot of light. But that's what my mindset was because I was coming from a different perspective. But through education, whatever, I went there and I've been going there for years, right? It's only recent that I've really like come out and really start talking about. I mean, even though there's been a lot of press, like I was on the cover of the National Post and the Har HaBayit, which is like a crazy thought in retrospect. But um, nevertheless, it's a big story, it's a big concept, and so I guess now Rabbi Pinchas did say people were coming to him talking about the Har HaBayit, and I know for sure people were coming at rabbis like we were listening to yesterday, like Rabbi Breitowitz and other people. And the thing is, it's just like I don't know. Now the Temple Mount issue is a much bigger issue than the Black Hebrew Israelite thing. You know what I'm saying? Black Hebrew Israel thing is like, okay, they're considered to be non-Jewish, right? So you know, are you what Torah are you allowed to teach, not teach, right? You remember we learned the whole one that we learned the response on it. So anyway, so you have that issue, which I was totally fine in that respect as well, as well. And then so now this thing with the Temple Mount is a much bigger issue because right now, like the Haredi world in like the I don't want to say secular because there's also like religious people who are also pushing back against the Haredi and their involvement in the IDF and the type of thing. So it's a big war right now. So like the Har HaBayit thing and me, it's not like a such a huge story per se because I'm not like recruiting people to go there. You know what I'm saying? I'm more so talking about my spiritual journey and the questions that I have and the issues that I'm dealing with and that's what this is about. And this is something that's important to me. It's important to my learning institution, all right, or our learning institution, and it's a direction that all Jews should have. Whether they're in Hutz La'aretz or in Eretz Israel, like we have to rebuild the Beis Hamikdash. That's the reality, and you're doing the Muslims a favor. You know what I mean? Like they're suffering, like being up there. Well, they need to be there. It's not even one of their holy sites, right? Mecca, Medina. You could say, oh, you could throw that in there too, but what's the connection that Muslims have with that place per se. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, so it's other than Ottoman Empire. You know what I'm saying? So whatever, it's holy because the Jews say it's holy. But in Abraham, I get it, the whole thing. But the point is just saying that the main point, I'm like kind of like jumping in that conversation at a very like I don't know if the word's auspicious, but a very unique time. So from there, it's another reason to hate on your boy. You know what I mean? But the great thing about being like people hating, even if it's in secret, is that it's like it allows you to have more freedom to do truth. Because like even like with social media, some people get like an algorithm because they do a certain type of post, and it goes and they get a following, but you can't do anything with that really. You know what I mean? Like maybe you can have like some life coaching or but that's not a long-term business. You know what I mean? Like that's not like, you know what I mean? Like it's not like you could, I mean, you have to be really knowledgeable about something, not like catchphrases and so anyways, the point is the thing. So that's and then B being a rabbi too is like a big issue, right? Like not me being a rabbi is going to Temple Mount and it's kind of like in the mainstream world is also a thing too. So whatever, I'm just dealing with that, but I'm not trying to, you know, disrespect anybody or disrespect Rabbanim. It's just the rabbis that I met and I learned with, it made sense. And even the rabbis that I learned with before, they don't have an issue with it. They just see it as kind of risky, like you go in certain places and the heart, whatever. So you saw Rabbi Beitos. That was the main person at Or Sameach. When I was there, he like I said, he gave me he wrote the endorsement on my book, Mind the Black Jew. You know what I mean? So you hear their opinions. So if someone on the outside has a more stricter opinion than the rabbis that I recently learned with and the rabbis that I learned underneath in yeshiva, that's their problem. That's not my problem. My problem is just to be in the frame of halacha and explore God, explore Kedusha, explore Eretz Israel in that frame. I mean, you don't see me going into the place where the dome is and in that courtyard or any of those places. Absolutely not. So, anyways, so yeah, so that's kind of like what's going on. Let me ask you this: you saw the video I sent to you, yeah? Just like a few like maybe an hour ago.
Yeah.
Okay, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think it's pretty cool. Like, I think it's informative. You know what I mean? Like, I think we talked about it before. Giving the ball to us in these spots, like, brings in more connectivity. Because like, a lot of people don't have an idea about the Harbaite at all. You know what I mean? Like, these places are just language, but it's not really a connection. So, doing like the ball Torah in these places, I think like you were talking about Rachel on the 11 Cheshvan, like just doing the Devar Torah in that sense, I think it just brings more connectivity and it brings, more meaningful content into the educational space of Torah, learning Torah and connecting to it through visualization. So I think I like it. I like what you're doing. I like the Devar Torah that you're giving in those, those spots and, the movement and the visualization of it. I think it's pretty good. I think it expands and becomes more and more, as you can. But I think it's a good place to start.
Yeah, it's a good place to start. And the thing is, it's just like, it's a destination, like there's a lot of spiritual movements that revolve around ideas, but these spiritual ideas, are nice and they could congregate people, whatever, but the destination, right? And that's what's made Judaism so successful because it's always had a destination, right? Which is coming back to the land of Israel, reclaiming it, rebuilding the base of Mikdash, doing Korbanos, Mashiach, And so whatever. It's just to say that like it's a thing. Hold on one second. Yeah, so those Devar Torahs is key because it's like the thing is on that point, it's like, well, when we talk about the Devar Torah concept, it's like, when have we ever seen an American rabbi teach from that perspective? You know what I'm saying? Like normally like, people are like, oh well, I'm the first black person to ever do that, But it's like, no, this is talk American. What American rabbis have given shear from the Harabite? You know what I'm saying? So it's just saying that like what we're doing is God's making these things happen. It's not some like agenda. Now that things are coming into place, then you could get creative and say, okay, what about this and that? But the inception of it was something that I never thought about, you know. I've asked Hashem for so many years, every year, to take me to levels beyond my imagination. And he consistently does it, right? So being on the hard by teaching Torah, doing mitzvahs, doing avoda, it's just like this is like next level, you know what I mean? But it's not to get into it so much to be like, wow, this is like so big. It's also the idea of being able to be like, okay, well, let's move everything and move it forward, And so now the idea is to say like, hey, you know what? The biggest thing we could do right now is to make this whole hard buyer concept famous. like people to understand like it's a thing, it's a place. And then I'm coming in saying like, hey, the reason why we're lacking energy in this world is because it's not built. So anyway, so we want to make that message famous, right? And right now we're just doing content. We're just doing content. I'm working with this like filmmaker person, and who's also like already was involved with the Temple Mount or whatever. So we're just doing like just content right now. You know what I mean? Like, and actually they sent me this video. I don't know, play this video. Probably do it, come out with it tomorrow. Hold on. This thing's so weird. Okay. Uh, Swipe it up. All right, hold on. It's only 15 seconds, but it was just sent to me. It was just sent to me like a few minutes ago. Okay. Okay, hold on. This is what I wanted you to see. But whatever, it's just like a little thing a filmmaker sent to me. All right, so let's learn a little learn a little Torah. Anyways, any final thoughts on that part? Just on content, any more ideas, anything you thought about?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think, as it expands, I think like the major thing you said it, like this is all Hashem, the Razon of Hashem. It's like, as you continue to edify and purify yourself and more Kedusha, those the innovation and creativity is gonna flow in from Shemayim. You know what I mean? And we never know how Hashem does things, but they just happen. And when they happen, the influence and the connectivity of it, that's beyond our control. So it's like our major thing is just creating a vessel. And that's obviously what you do every single day. So as you continue to create the vessel, the contents that get poured into it will be a Kedusha. They'll be with the highest recognition and bring in more awareness to Hashem to bring humanity together. That's the major goal. I think you said that to Yeshiva is to remove pain and suffering from the world and to elevate everyone's neshama, to bring the neshama to the forefront of humanity's consciousness for one. So just keep doing what you're doing. Hashem will bring the right filmmakers, the right content creators, whatever, to get the right angles, the right aura, what I mean, the right visualization of it, or whatever you might be looking for, it'll manifest itself. So just continue to do what you're doing, and it's gonna be amazing to see how it continues to develop, because I haven't seen much content on the hard bite at all. Like I know you were
Yeah.
saying from American rabbi, but I think even just any rabbis, period, I don't think that's a major thing because it's such a taboo. Like even you was explaining in your in the video you sent, like a lot of people don't realize what's forbidden and what's not. So I think
So,
this brings in a more of a conversation of the halakha, because, and I think we talked about it before. I think, and I think this is not a negative thought. I think the whole of Kalal Yisrael needs to elevate its consciousness in learning, in halakha, in application. Like, what do we know and what do we not? Like we need to all be on that on a certain level. Like Bnei Israel, when they were in the wilderness, they were all Zadikim at the highest level. So much so that Hashem and Shekinah shown in front of them all. They were able to recognize it. That's the goal of all Kalal Yisrael. So these conversations help, because it's like, hey, what do you know about the Harbite? What's forbidden and what's not? And this brings another layer of conversation, a halik conversation that we need to have, that we should have. So I think it's progressive, to say the least.
yeah, progressive. Okay, so let's go into this. This is Cov So it's chapter 28, Chalak Pirkei Chokmah, says the cuff. All right. So again, what is this idea of the cuff? The cuff is these are tools of logic for us to be able to rationalize these movements of lights that have no physicality, right? So this idea of the cuff is a mechanism that we're utilizing to understand how the lights of the endless world, even though they come into the Simsun, which is a limited reality, they're nevertheless connected to the manifestation, which is um, the manifestation, which is the the Rishu, I can't even say Rishu, Rishmo, Rishmo or Mishru. Was the best one. Uh, anyways, I can't. My mind, right? Anyways, so the point is saying this residue. What is a residue? It's us. It's the trees. It's the dirt. It's the plants. It's the sky. It's the stars. It's the planets. All these things are what the Kabbalists are using the term residue or mishu, right? Which is this idea of the world that we see is only just a residue of the light. It does not encompass the light itself, right? All right. So it says like this: the line of the Ein Sof, blessed be He, entered into the residue, is concealed within it on inside on all of its levels. So everything that light force that exists inside of all of us, every aspect of us is concealing this light force. Yet it still stands outside and encompasses it, right? Because it's not limited, right, to this limited Mishu. It's also an expanded reality, all the way to the Ein Sof. And it must be said to include its power and to look down upon every side. Even so, all this occurs in such a way that the line accommodates itself to the residue. This is the inter and encompassing light of the spherot, which is the underlying foundation of the vessel. So we're going to understand what all this means in a second. Acharei shezikerenu kanis hakov tok. So in having discussed the entry of the line into the empty space, why is it empty? Because the light wasn't there before, per se. Like there's a process of the light coming in there, and that's what we refer to as an empty space. Now we must explain the manner in which it spreads out within. Chaloki hana amar hazeh hem gimel. Okay, so he says it's four parts to this. The first part is the line of the Ein Sof. He explains how the line extends within the residue. Part two explains, it says, yet it stands outside, explains the encompassing light. Even so, this explains the light accommodates itself to match the residue into which it enters, right? So it's saying like that light that comes from the inside, like you're just talking about this idea of the vessel and building a vessel. So he's talking about the perfection of the amount of light in the vessel happens even though it comes from this extremely powerful place. He says part four is the inner and encompassing light. This explains the different aspects of the spreading light in their names. All right. So we're going to start on the first part. It says halak aleph kav hayin sof. Blessed be he. Right. Hakenis beitok. So he's going on this idea of the light entering the residue is concealed within it and in it on the outsides of it on all levels. What does this mean? The concealment of the light of the line of the Ein Sof within the residue is the source of two modes of government discussed earlier. One is this concept of good and evil, right? Which the Tanya says the animal soul and the godly soul, and the rule of unity, which is even though these ideas come from different, they have different expressions, they all come from the same source. Correspondingly, respectively, to the form of address and name. Address being, I guess, the location, and the name being the specific. The rule of the unity is concealed within the manifest rule of good and evil. Accordingly, we say that the line is concealed. And this is what was gained through the having the line, it's that having the line clothe itself within the residue. Let's keep going. He says, Unikara shenagu vehuma shema'anu le ma'ale. So he says, and thus, and he says, and thus, he says, and is thus said to govern it. As stated earlier, the residue is governed by the rule of unity. This explains what we mean when we say the residue gains from the fact that the line is concealed within it. Ah, okay. So so he said up here earlier, right? He says the line, the cuff has two mechanisms of how we understand it over the Mishu, right? What is the relationship with the residue and the cuff? Two aspects, good and evil, which is the Yitzhar Hara, Yitzhar Tov, the left side, the right side, all that type of stuff. And then the aspect of unity, which is a mechanism that will allow something to sustain itself, right? Because it's the source that's giving, the source that is receiving is unified, so therefore it is also unified, right? He says corresponding respectfully to the form of address and name, the rule of unity is concealed within the rule of good and evil. Interesting. Accordingly, we say that the line is concealed. This is what we gain through having the line itself clothed within the residue. Unikara shemina hagu vehu ma she nu le. Okay, so he says it's stated earlier the residue is governed by the rule of the unity. So the physical reality is governed by this aspect of rule of unity. This is what it's governed by. This explains what we mean when we say the residue gains from the fact that the line is concealed within it. Let's try to understand it. Just keep going. Halak bed ve omed be tof. He says, and yet it stands outside. He says, the reason why it stands outside, okay, the reason why it stands outside and it is not, the reason why it stands outside is that when we light, is that when the light came to enter the vessel, it is not all of it entered. Half of it stands outside. Now, this is big, right? Half of it stands outside, and thus it accompanies it, functions while standing in an appropriate place that is within it, that which is outside for the matters explained further in part 4. So that's a big concept, right? That's something to really take in, is this idea that the life force of the creator, as we understand it, as like who we are, for example, right? So we say, we the world has taught us to define ourselves from the Mishu, right? I mean, Rishmu, right? And the world is taught us to define ourselves in that way, right? And the defining ourselves in that way is people see that like what you see is the totality, right? And even if people get into the Kabbalistic level, they'll say like, okay, well, I have a neshama, right? Well, we're not even dealing with the neshama. We're talking about the light force from the creator as it manifests in this world. And so the residue, which is our physical body, which we even could say our soul per se, is only expressing half of that light. Right? And he says he's going to explain more. He says, Umi kifu. He says, and encompasses it. He says, this indicates that it does not stand far off, so it would have no contact w- with what is produced, namely the residue. Rather, it surrounds it, and it surrounds it, and it is said to include its powers. This means that the cause of and includes it in the way that a cause includes it affects. It affects. The encompassing light is a cause of the vessel, namely the residue. The encompassing light is the ultimate revelation. The vessel and the residue contain the roots of a man's service, whereby he is able to where he is able to obtain the revelation, which is the reward. The encompassing light is thus the encompassing light is thus the goal of the man's is the goal of man's service, and later being the vessel, being the means of the vessel. So I think we need to like pay attention to that. I'm not clear on this. All right, so he says the reason why it stands out is that when the light comes to enter the vessel, is not all of it enters. Okay. So they're trying to explain this idea of within and without, right? And he says half of it stands outside, and thus it accomplishes its function while standing in its appropriate place. What is within it like that which is outside of it? Okay, I get that. The encompassing in this indicates that it is not far off, for if so, so it encompasses. So he's saying there's this idea of internal light and surrounding light. So he's saying that other 50% of the light that is not a part of the Mishu surrounds the Mishu, right? And he says this indicates not far off. He says it would have no connection with what it produces, namely the residue. Whether it surrounds it, and it is said to include its powers. So that internal light and surrounding light are together. This means that the cause of he says it means that it is the cause of and includes it in the way that a cause includes its effect. So this thing, like when you have a soda and you pour a soda inside of, you pour it very fast and all the foam comes out, right? Well, the foam is different than ultimately what you're going to drink, right? But the foam it starts to overflow and goes down the side of the cup, right? But it's from the same substance, but it's not in the cup. It's on the outside. It's flowing around it, right? And that flowing around it is this surrounding, encompassing light. He said this he says this means that it is the cause of and includes in a way a cause that includes its effect. So that's again, it's still the soda, right? But it's a part of the soda that's not in the cup, right? But it surrounds that. So it's nevertheless it's the cause that external light is the cause of the internal effect, right? They're together. He says the encompassing light is the cause of the vessel, namely the residue. The encompassing light is the ultimate revelation, right? The encompassing light, which is the overflowing part. The vessel and the residue contain roots of man's service. So ultimately, the surrounding light, it seems like we want to make a connection to the surrounding light. Some people may refer to this as, say, the Shekhinah, right? The surrounding light, the Or Makif, right? He said the encompassing light is the ultimate revelation. The vessel and the residue contain the roots of man's service, whereby they're enabled, whereby we are able to obtain revelation. This is the reward. The encompassing light is thus the cause of the man's service, the latter being the means of the vessel. Okay, so this encompassing light has two aspects, right? There's an internal and external component, right? And so the way it sounds like is like the internal aspect is somewhat the vessel, and then the external aspect is kind of like the light force, right? So one builds a vessel and then one fills it. So part of our work, spiritual work, is to create this internal vessel, like you were just saying earlier, to allow the encompassing light to come in and to create this unification. But similarly, but it could look different, right? It could look like the light that's within us is the light within us, and there's external light. No, they're together. But one creates a vessel, and then one is the encompassing light. So he says, Halak Gimel Alpha P can even so, all this occurs in such a way that the line accommodates itself to the residue. Even though the light is encompassing light and is not limited by the vessel, it is not like the Ein Sof. Ooh. It encompasses everything yet is beyond all limitations. In the case of the line, everything that enters into the space accommodates itself entirely to the residue. The encompassing light is thus a relationship with the vessel. In other words, the encompassing light is also within the space, unlike the Ein Sof, who surrounds the encompassing in the vacuum space or place from the outside. So he's showing a difference. He's showing a difference between, um, you know, he's saying what we're saying, right? So let's stop at Dalit, which is 10, right? Maybe we did this before, I don't remember, but let's just stop here for a second, or for today at least. And the main point is like, what are we learning? We're learning the relationship between the Kav. What is the Kav? The Kav is a mechanism the sages, Kabbalists have developed for us to understand how Hashem's light goes from this endless world through the 22 channels of letters to becoming divine names to ultimately going through this process of Simsun, which allows it to become manifest on the level of Mishu, Rishu, which is residue, and then that being the world that we live in. So we're understanding that process. So we need to understand so we don't think that these are different realities. That no, it's all the same reality, and it's just going through filters. What is a filter? How do we understand how do we understand a filter? Through a straight line. The light from above, the light to below, right? And so he's saying there's two mechanisms of how that light manifests itself in the world of residue. One is through the frame of good and evil, right? Which is means is back and forth. When we say good and evil, we're not saying, oh, the bad people and the good people. We're saying no, the desire to share and the desire to receive. The side of chesed, the side of gevura, right? All these things are connected, right? And so Ima, Abba, all these things, right? So the point is just saying, so this is how the world is designed, right? And then another element within that is complete unity, right? So even though there is this aspect of division, right, there's also this dynamic of unity, right? Complete unity, right? And so this complete unity is the basis of all creation, but within that is this aspect of duality, which is the Hesed and Gevura, right? Through our Bechira and following mitzvot, we create Tiferet. And within Tiferet is all the other spheroids. So that idea, at least to Yesod, that idea is what we're building off of, and we have to have clear because this is who we are. We are a combination of good and evil. It's a hara, it's a tov, and we are an expression of complete unity. That's why we look the way we do. And that's why we have the behavior that we have in our own unique way. And not only that, we learn that the life force of the creator that comes from the upper worlds into this world, literally only part of it encompasses who we are, the physical Mishu. The other of it, Rishu, okay, whatever, the residue, right? The who we are, the physical makeup, the 1% reality, right? That expression of who we are is understood through unity, but within the personality of that light is also this duality. This makes up who we are. So if we have an evil inclination and we did negative things, or maybe we hurt people in the past or did something we are ashamed of, this is part of the makeup. Some people have more intensity in this area. Some people have more intensity in that area. But the point is the same. This is a light. Who we are in our susceptibilities is a light that we're here to correct, right? And so that is a very important concept because we're understanding the human design in a new way, right? Because we are not who we were told that we are, not in terms of race, ethnicity, and my heritage. I'm talking about the actual entity that unifies me with all the other billions of human beings on planet Earth. That that understanding of ourselves, we have not been taught. It's in the secret text. They try to tuck it away. This is who we are. We're not black people. We're not white people. We're not Asian people. We're not Americans. We're not Chinese. We're not any of these things. These are all man-made concepts. Who we are is an expression of the light force of creator. And we understand the mechanism of this light force is created through the concept of the cuff. Now, if you want me to dumb myself down and go into your information, then fine, I could do that. I'm a black man, I'm from America in this, and or I'm a white man, I'm from America. I'm a Hispanic man, I'm from America. Tell me about myself. Okay, let me go and read the book. Okay, who am I? Okay, this is who I am. This is what my people went through. Okay, who wrote this? Oh, it doesn't matter. Okay, cool. All right, so okay, so this is who I am. Thank you. This is who I am. This is who I am. I'm a Hispanic man from Mexico, and I came to America. ICE is after me. Hey, I'm a black man. I'm a victim of racism and plantation and systematic racism. And hey, I'm a white man. You know, everyone hates me because they think I did them wrong, and I didn't do anything. I just grew up, and they called me white, and you know, they told me I had privileges. I don't feel like I got privileges, but they said I do. You know, blah blah. So you could believe that, and you could spend your whole life that way. Now I'm not talking to you. But people could believe that and spend their whole life that way. But that's not who we are as humans. Ibn Adam. That's not who we are. And until we figure out who we are, we're going to keep fighting each other. We're going to keep being racist. We're going to keep being greedy. We're going to keep seeing that, you know, the guy who's starving on the street, that has nothing to do with me. I'm doing me. You know what I mean? Until we get to that place where we can see that that other person is an expression of myself. Those other people are an expression of myself, right? There is evil in the world. And God tells us how to deal with evil. So I'm not saying kumbaya, but what I am saying is that if we enter the discussion understanding that we're all from the same source with the same goal in this lifetime, that changes a lot of negotiations. Any thoughts, final thoughts, reflections?
No, Yofi, Yofi. Yeah, I think what you just said is powerful and profound, and something that we should, all take into thought, and realize, as the wrong cause bringing out, like even though there seems to be fragmentation, it's all cohesive. Um, that's what we're learning with the Shamu, with the residue of it. It's like the database, it's like the foundational point, and now we're moving into how the infinite, operates within a structured limitation. And once you kind of see that, it's kind of like in Torah where it's saying that Hashem's voice when he said Anoki, there was no echo, like no echo at all, nothing, everything received the voice. There was no resistance from it, and that's our reality. Everything's from Hashem. Everything is one. Ramchal is now teaching us how Hashem operates within the limitation that He created, how it's infinite within this limitation, how the kaf is like the flow. The reshumu is the foundation, the kaf is the flow. And now we can truly receive and we can understand. And now you're not living in a world where it seems to be contradictions. It seems to be good and evil, light and darkness. It's all from one source. And it's all structured and all has a purpose. And as we all have a purpose. So the things in your life aren't just happenstance. Oh, this is bad. No, it's all for the progression of your soul, the rectification. We're in tikkun olam. We're trying to rectify everything. That's the purpose. That's the purpose when Adam fell. Now we rectify. Hashem way for Abraham Avinu to rectify, to bring order to the world, to bring blessing to the world. And you can't have blessings without structure. So maybe that's why you have what we call evil. That's why you have darkness. These are the structures that allow blessings to pour forth. So, Baruch Hashem.
Man, beautiful. So yeah, so we'll just keep it going. But yeah, the key thing is like, after this year is seeing the people around us, like when you walk into the store, driving the road, and to think about how they see themselves and how they've been taught a narrative about their whole existence and everything there. And they're so confident and comfortable with it that they're even willing to fight and die for it. It's like when Corona was happening, people really beat each other up over the mask. And they really didn't have any real reason to believe that the mask mattered other than, some doctors said it. And then they even retracted it. So this is no different and how we're willing to fight over these narratives. People be like, "You're ashamed of who you are." Bro, the white man don't have he doesn't have the power to define me anymore. I'm sorry. If that's difficult for you guys to understand, I'm sorry. I hold by Judaism. I hold by the Torah. So that is who describes who I am. I don't care what any uncircumcised white man, black man, whoever man that was in some fake universities with some fake books, going to sit here and tell me who my identity is, and that identity has only done harm to people like me. That identity has not empowered us. It's not made you feel you can do anything. No, it made us feel scared and we were limited and we needed help and we were victims and this and so that. So I reject it. I reject it completely. I'm free. I'm with God. I'm defined by Kabbalah. I'm not defined by history books in America. And